Chains of fire. The day the Zord Dominion arrived, the sky turned black with fire. Their fleets eclipsed the stars, colossal ships drifting into Earth orbit like predatory shadows. They didn't announce themselves with diplomacy. They didn't ask for surrender. They simply broadcast a single message in 1,000 tongues. Humanity will serve. Those who resist will die. And then the bombardment began. Cities were reduced to glass. Armies barely had time to mobilize before orbital strikes vaporized them. Our greatest weapons, nuclear fire, stealth jets, railguns, all useless against the Dominion's shields. We fought, yes, but it wasn't a war. It was slaughter. Within weeks, the Earth was silent. What survivors remained were rounded up, shackled in chains of light, and loaded onto transport vessels. Families torn apart. Children ripped from parents. Scientists, soldiers, workers. It didn't matter. To the Zorith, we were not people. We were property. Slaves. The Dominion had done this before. 1,000 worlds, 1,000 species, broken and bent to their will. They expected humanity to bow the same way. But they didn't understand us. Not yet. We were shipped across the stars like cattle, scattered to labor camps, mining colonies, and shipyards. On Droska 9, a sulfur-choked hell world, men and women from Earth were forced into the mines, digging out or for Zorth warships. Food was scarce. Guards were merciless. Death was common. But in the silence of those dark tunnels, something else grew. Hope. The guards thought the humans were beaten. They thought the endless toil was crushing us. But what they didn't see was what the work was building. Muscles hardened under endless labor. Minds adapted, learning alien machines and tools. Soldiers who once carried rifles now carried pickaxes, and realized a weapon is just a weapon no matter its shape. And in whispers, passed from bunk to bunk, from camp to camp, a truth began to spread. We are not slaves. We are soldiers in waiting. On Earth, we had fought wars against impossible odds before. We had stood against empires, dictators, and tyrants. Now we would do it again, even if we had to fight with our bare hands. The Zorth believed they had broken us. In truth, they had forged us. And soon, they would learn the price of mistaking humans for slaves. Sparks of rebellion. The first spark came in the dark, deep beneath the sulfur skies of Droska 9. For months, the humans labored in silence. The Zorth guards watched with their cold, insectoid eyes, armed with rifles that could melt steel. Every attempt at escape had ended the same. Executions. Public, brutal, meant to crush hope. And yet, instead of killing hope, those executions fed it. Each fallen worker became a name whispered in the barracks at night. Every death was a reminder. Humanity had nothing left to lose. The spark was lit by a man named Tomas Hale, a former engineer from Chicago, dragged across the stars to swing a pick in the Dominion's mines. Hale was no soldier. He wasn't trained to fight, but he was clever, and more importantly, he was angry. One shift, while repairing a broken plasma drill, Hale forgot to return a component, a power cell, no larger than his fist. Hidden beneath his rags, it became the core of something new. For weeks he scavenged and built, piece by piece, until one night, in the shadows of the barracks, the humans stared at the first homemade weapon. A bomb. Small, crude, deadly. The rebellion began the next day. When the guards marched the humans back into the mines, Hale stayed behind, coughing, pretending to be sick. As the guards approached to drag him out, he triggered the device. The blast tore through the tunnel, burying 2 Zorth beneath molten rock. Their weapons were ripped from their hands, their armor cracked. For the first time, humans held alien rifles. For the first time, the guards bled. The Dominion responded swiftly. Gunships swarmed over the mines. Barracks were burned, dozens executed in reprisal. But it didn't matter. The spark had caught. On other worlds, whispers of Droska 9 spread like wildfire. A stolen wrench became a blade. A hacked communicator carried forbidden messages. A cargo convoy never arrived at its destination. In the camps of Krillin 7, a young woman named Mara Kalin led workers in seizing a food depot, turning ration crates into barricades. On Vader Prime, prisoners tunneled out beneath the mines, ambushing patrols with sharpened tools. Every act, no matter how small, sent a clear message. Humanity would not kneel. The Zord Dominion had conquered countless species. They believed rebellion was impossible, but they had never enslaved humans before. They didn't realize that in every human heart, even in chains, there is a soldier waiting to rise. And one by one, the sparks began to spread. Soon, the Dominion would realize they hadn't taken slaves. They had created an army, the first army. The Dominion called it a containment operation. History would call it the first human victory. For months, the uprisings have been scattered. A bomb in the mines of Droska 9, a stolen food depot on Krillin 7, tunnels carved into the bedrock of Vader Prime. To the Zorth overlords, these were nothing more than annoyances, insignificant flames that could be crushed beneath the heel of their empire. But what they didn't see was how the flames were spreading. Whispers became signals. Signals became plans. And plans became war. It was Mara Kalin who united them. Once just a miner's daughter, she had become something more, a leader hardened by fire and loss. Using hacked Dominion comms relays, she reached across light years, speaking to pockets of rebellion. Her words were simple. Alone we die. Together we fight. Together we win. The target was chosen carefully, a Zorth weapons convoy, escorted but not heavily guarded, moving through the asteroid belt of the Draven Expanse. Inside, plasma rifles, grenades, and, most importantly, pulse repeaters, the kind of weapons that could tear through armor. For the first time, the humans weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting to arm themselves. The ambush began with silence. Mining vessels, disguised as scavenger ships, drifted in the asteroid field. Inside, human rebels waited, fingers trembling over stolen controls. As the Dominion convoy entered the belt, the signal was given. The rocks came alive. Hidden thrusters ignited, sending asteroids tumbling into the convoy's path. The Zorth escorts scrambled, shields flaring as they tried to push through. That's when the human ship struck, engines roaring, cutting in close where the Dominion's massive warships couldn't maneuver. Boarding parties launched. Crude, desperate, but effective. Tomas Hale, the engineer-turned-rebel, led one of the first breaching teams. With stolen plasma cutters, they sliced through airlocks, storming into alien corridors. The fighting was brutal, hand-to-hand, every step paid for in blood. But the humans were relentless. For every soldier that fell, another picked up their rifle and charged. By the time the smoke cleared, the convoy was theirs. For the first time, humans stood armed with real weapons, Dominion weapons. Plasma rifles clutched in scarred hands. Grenades strapped to belts made from torn rags. Fighters who had once swung picks and shovels now carried the fire war. The Zorth Dominion laughed no longer. Their reports called the attack unprecedented. They labeled humanity a dangerous anomaly. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the word fear appeared in their records. Because this was no longer scattered rebellion. This was the beginning of an army. On Droska 9, the workers trained with captured rifles, turning drills into combat exercises. On Krillin 7, the stolen depot became a fortress, defended by barricades and turrets. Across dozens of worlds, humans rose, armed not just with weapons, but with unity. The Zorth wanted slaves. Instead, they had given humanity its first army. And soon, that army would march. Soldiers of humanity. The Zorth Dominion had ruled for 10,000 years. Their throne world, Vader Prime, was a fortress of obsidian spires, shielded by fleets so vast they blotted out the stars. Entire civilizations had bent the knee before them. None had ever dared to strike their heart. Until humanity. The humans were still outnumbered, still outgunned, still outmatched. But they were no longer slaves. They were soldiers. Mara Kalin stood aboard the captured flagship Iron Reborn, staring at the fleet array before them. Once, these ships had ferried slaves to the mines. Now, they carried free men and women armed with stolen rifles, homemade explosives, and one thing the Dominion could never replicate, defiance. Today, Mara said to her crew. Her voice carried across a dozen hijacked comm channels. "We show the galaxy what happens when you try to break humanity. Today we rise not as slaves, but as warriors." The fleet roared. The battle began in fire. Human corvettes darted between the massive Dominion warships, too fast to lock onto, slipping through their shields like knives through flesh. Plasma fire lit the void, streaks of blue and green tearing holes in steel. Asteroids, rigged with explosives, detonated among the fleets, ripping apart cruisers meant to outlast centuries. On the ground, drop pods slammed into the streets of Vadran Prime. Doors blew open, and human soldiers poured out, men and women who had once been miners, farmers, and prisoners. Now, with rifles in hand, they fought like veterans. The Zorth expected disorganized mobs. What they faced were coordinated squads. Every corridor cleared with precision, every barricade broken with ferocity. Humanity was fighting not just for survival, but for vengeance. Inside the throne spire, Mara Kalen led the final charge. The Zorth overlord towered above her, armored in centuries of conquest, confident in his empire's eternal rule. "You were born slaves," he hissed, his voice echoing across the chamber. "You should have stayed on your knees." Mara raised her stolen rifle, its barrel glowing with heat. Her soldiers stood at her back, bloodied but unbroken. "No," she said, "we were born free. And today, we make sure no one forgets it." The overlord fell. The chamber fell silent. And then, across the throne world, across the galaxy, a message was broadcast. The aliens wanted slaves. Instead, they got soldiers. The Dominion collapsed in days. Their fleet splintered, their vassal species rising in revolt. Across the stars, humanity became more than survivors. They became liberators. No one would ever again look at humans as weak. No one would ever again think chains could hold them, because humanity had shown the galaxy the truth. Slaves can be broken, but soldiers? Soldiers fight until the stars burn out, and humanity would never kneel.